Here we go. Greetings, everyone. Peace and blessings be unto you. I am Minister Jamie Eatman, and I am on the rise, and I pray you are as well. If you stick around, you'll find out a little bit more about what it means to be on the rise. There's a lot more people on the rise than they realize, and on the other side of that coin, there's a lot of people who are not as rising as high as they may think they are. But that's not up to me, that's up to you. You have to decide what the future holds for you and what you're doing in the present. As we come together and I sort of reference reasoning together today, maybe we can determine how high we choose to rise and if we are rising as high as we think we are. In any case, let us enter into prayer. Most Holy Father, we thank you. Father, we just thank you for all that you're doing, all that you've done, and all that you're going to do in our lives. We thank you for this program tonight. I pray that what's going to be said and done shall make a difference and make an impact in someone's life, be it tonight or whenever they shall encounter it. I pray that something is going to be said that might change the way someone acts, might change the way someone thinks, might change the way someone speaks, might change the life that they are living and who they consider themselves to be. But we give you honor and glory in all things as we take this opportunity to ask forgiveness for any sins we've committed, knowingly or unknowingly. Forgive us for our trespasses and forgive those who trespass against us. And Father, I pray for those who are in office, those who are running for office. I pray that you give them wisdom that they might lead in a manner that's reflective upon righteousness, a manner that's reflective upon justice. And Father, I pray that you would deal with them accordingly. Let your sword be true. These blessings I most humbly ask in the spirit of Christ. Amen. All right, my brother. Are you ready, Brother Gregory?
Yes, sir, I am.
I know if you're like me, you kind of rehash some of the things that we talked about. Anything particular we talked about last week that you want to touch on before we move forward?
I believe we covered a lot, and if everyone wants to hear what we talked about, they gotta go back and watch that video.
Hey, that's what my wife does. She does this little review, and she says if you want to know everything that was said, you got to go back and watch the program. But you're right. And going back, there's some things we said then, and if we had to do the exact same program, then we wouldn't say now. Some of them may be good, some of them may be better, but the only way to know is to actually, as stated, go and take the time to watch the program. But we talked about identity, a matter of identity, and we are going to be following up on that. So as we go through this program, we're going to kind of touch on the topic in general. Some of it be what we said, some of it will be new, and hopefully I'll find at least one video to share with you. But let's talk about the drum major, Brother Gregory.
Mm-hmm.
Do you consider yourself a drum major? I think I may have asked you this. Do you consider yourself a drum major?
You know what? That's a good question. I'm gonna say no. I don't consider myself a drum major because I don't think I see myself as someone that likes to be upfront and be seen. However, I am the type of person that has no problem if someone's following my direction. So I guess I would be the security that's on the field.
Okay. I like that. It's interesting about the drum major instincts. I touched on that, and I was trying to kind of figure out whether people want to see it as a negative or a positive, or even if I saw it as a negative or positive. And it was interesting because when you think about the drum major instinct, it's like you said, the first thing stands out. What was the first thing you said? Out front, right?
Right.
So when you think about the concept of being out front and somebody seeing you out front, that brings some thoughts. People have that will question, why are you out front? do you deserve to be out front? They got a whole lot of things they'll throw at you. But beyond what they throw at you is actually what you have to get past to actually get out front. So as far as being a drum major, and you said you really don't think you're a drum major, the ingredients that you would bring to the table or what you would have to offer, do you think it would be a matter of your holding back from people and not being that drum major, them truly benefiting if you stepped up and were intentional?
Well, okay, so it's a very deep question for me because I have a a not a very good past with people in general, and and the thought of someone having to follow my direction because I know exactly what I'm talking about, or I know what I'm doing. I can know everything in the world, but if the people don't understand what a leader looks like, they just gonna be doing whatever they want to do. And so me and my life, the way how my life has played out, there's only been a few people that I would listen to, and even less that I would actually follow what they say. And I've had three good examples in my life, and one of them has passed away. So now I only have two good examples in my life that I would consider uh, drum majors. So in order for me to be a drum major, I would have to have someone depend on me and look up to me and understand that I'm the one that's gonna pave the way for them. I don't have children, so I don't have that automatic responsibility of being a drum major. And I have nieces and nephews, but they're gonna listen to their mother versus me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I see myself as, yes, I have a a, a bucket load of knowledge. However, from my experience, I can give everybody all the knowledge they want, whether they use it or not. That's up to them because I can't force nobody to use this for their own good or do something for their own good. I can force my own child, but look, you need to do this because it's good for you. I can't force another adult to do that. I can't even force my nieces and nephews because if I say y'all need to do this and that, the first thing gonna do is look at their mother. Is he right? They're gonna look at her for direction. They're not gonna look
Right.
at me. So I
Mm-hmm.
don't have anyone in my life that will just take what I say is gospel. Um, so I don't have that experience, but I can
Right.
say, um, I can protect the people that's in my life. So that's why I say I could probably be the security guard on the field, making sure nobody run up on the field. I can do that, but I don't know if I can be a drum major.
Right. I got you. And you said something that's really interesting because you started off with the setting, the surroundings where you saw yourself operable as a drum major, if you did. Um, and you chose family, and you actually chose the younger generation, which is a great thing because we do want to pass something on. But when I think of a drum major, I think I guess you might say multi-generational. For example, is a perfect example. The Bible speaks of a man being able to rule his household. If he can't rule his household, then there's no way. Supposedly, he's supposed to be able to rule the house of God, a worship house of worship, whatever you want to call them, churches.
Hmm.
So when I look at it, I think on several levels. I look at it from that perspective because, being in ministry, I always give thought to that. And on the other side of that coin, I look at it this way. You remember the saying, it takes a village? If you
Hmm.
think about the concept of it takes a village, and if we actually believe that concept, that puts us outside of our homes. That puts you in contact with some of those same people that you may not be as comfortable with in dealing with them. So when you look at that, and then you made reference to them following, oftentimes people find it hard to follow. And usually it's for a certain reason. It may be certain bias that they have. It may be that they know too much about you. You've heard the saying that about a prophet in his own hometown. He can go places and be accepted, but in his hometown, people are a little more reluctant to
Hmm.
receive him. So when you look at the drum major instincts, or when I look at the drum major instincts from that perspective, I see that there is probably be more reasons for a person to hesitate than it would be for them to, how the drum major blows that whistle, get everybody's attention. And
Hmm.
then the next blow of it is when he steps out. And depending on how uh, orchestrated they are, they step out as a unit, or at least he finds himself out front. So when I look at a drum major from that perspective, my thought is we are blessed if, like you said, he has the skills necessary to make that type of a difference in people's lives.
Hmm.
We are blessed if he has the willingness uh, to do that. And as you alluded to, it can be kind of discouraging sometimes trying to lead an ungrateful people. But a drum major has to endure all of that and still continue on, because people are going to be looking. They're going to be looking for that zeal. They're going to look for that drive. The same ones that need motivating today may be the same ones that need motivating tomorrow. Some of those that were enthusiastic today may be the same ones that be lack enthusiasm tomorrow. But there's something in the character of that one that's called to be the drum major that sets him and her apart. And that's that drum major instinct. How important do you feel that individual is, whether you see yourself as, environment that you'd be able to do it in? Let's just look at that concept. How important do you feel a drum major is in our lives? I didn't narrow it down to community or whatever. In our lives, how important?
I think it's very important in every level in our lives, and um, just looking over my life, I'm 40 years old this year, and in my past, they purposefully put people in positions to weed out everyone that's not going to be a leader. And I don't know if they do this anymore. I don't know if they just let people volunteer and they're not fit to be leaders. But the way I grew up is you had to be tested you had to pass a test in order to become a leader of anything.
Okay.
And from kindergarten to in order for you to be the person that starts the line for kindergarten, you had to know how to get everybody's attention. You had to have that possess that skill to get everybody's attention to stay in line. When I got to fifth grade, I was a hall monitor. You had to first you had to be disciplined enough to not, get yourself in detention. So you had to have a clean record. So you had to prove yourself, and just in that aspect that you know how to follow the rules
Mm-hmm.
in order to be a hall monitor. And then when I started playing sports, uh, I knew the game well enough to know how to make a good decision. So they made me captains on teams that I was on, and my point is, nowadays it seems like all you got to do is raise your hand if you would just want the title, and it seems that way. I might be wrong, but it seems like people that just raise their hand or they're the loudest person in the room seem to think that they are leaders.
Right.
And I was talking to someone earlier today about that. I was like, uh, it seems like the loudest people are the ones that's starting to become our leaders versus the people that need to lead are the ones sitting back in the corner observing. Because the generation I grew up in, leaders did not yell or be loud, or that they didn't, they were just quietly talking to individuals, seeing what's the pulse of the room versus trying to be the loudest one in the room. And there's a lot of people that are false leaders, if you will, and they they think they know how to lead someone, but when the pressure is upon them to lead, then they're like, well, shoot, no, such and such told me this, that, and the third, and they start pushing the blame somewhere else. A leader has to know how to dish it out just as well as they can get it. And
Mhm.
so, in order for you to be a leader, you have to be able to say, you know what, that's on me. I'm wrong. I'll take that. That's my fault. A leader has to be able to say they were wrong about something. And somehow there are leaders that don't know how to take that responsibility anymore. And it's all the way down to just mothers and fathers. There are mothers and fathers in this world that don't even know how to take the simple responsibility of saying, you know what, that is my child. They did something wrong, and that's on me for not teaching them how to do right. Just that simple responsibility is being overlooked, but they were
Mhm.
responsible enough to lay down. Well, hold on, let me get off my soapbox.
Right.
But I think that leaders today need to be tested
Hmm.
and be tested on their qualifications of, oh, you can raise your hand if you want to be a leader. Yeah, volunteer yourself to try and be one, but then don't just become one. You have to be tested. You have to pass an exam. You have to pass a test. You have to even stories that we hear in the Bible. Leaders have been tested before they became leaders. They had to be tested before God said, "You are the leader of these particular people." At the very least, when Adam and with Eve were in the garden, they were
Hmm.
tested.
Yeah.
The first he tested them by saying, "Do not touch that tree," and they failed the test. Not just one person failed the test. The leader said, "We both failed the test." Even
Hmm.
though one of them only touched the apple, the leader of that group, uh, Adam, he said, "No, we both failed, so we both got kicked out."
Hmm.
And he took on that responsibility. He could have just walked his way and said, "Look, you got us kicked out of his garden, man. Forget you, I'm gone." But no, he said, "Look, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna stick together and we're gonna do what we need to do to survive in this world." And that's what leaders do. And that's what a lot of people don't realize what happened in Genesis. They think, oh, you know, they both messed up. Yeah, they probably both messed up, but it took a leader to say, "Let's survive. Let's
Hmm.
continue on in life."
Right.
Because with the knowledge of what happened in Garden Eden, I don't think many people would want to just keep on living after that. You were in paradise, got kicked out because you broke the rule, the one rule that the only one. There was only one rule he said, and you broke that one rule. There was a million other things you could have did, but he broke the one rule, and they said, "Let's keep on living."
Right. I like what you're saying with that because you looked at the leader as you looked at the accountability aspect beyond the responsibility. There's people will look at responsibility. Well, he was responsible. I mean, you looked at the accountability and the fact that the leader has to be accountable, which is a big plus because most people wouldn't catch that. They wouldn't catch the accountability piece. And those are two words that are very important. And they're actually very different as well, because, when a person's responsible for something, you are the one that answers if something goes wrong. But if it's more than maybe 2 or 3 people or a group and they have different roles, everybody has a responsibility, but only one person has an accountability. If you look at it from that perspective there, and that person who has the accountability, they can either see themselves as being burdened with all of this and they're burdened by it, or they can see themselves as being a part of all of this. So when you look at leadership, there's various ways that people look at it, but you're entirely correct. Leaders are tested, whether they realize it or not. Most leaders, they're good up until something happens that calls for some real leadership. When it comes down to a decisive moment that calls for some uncomfortable decision, it may be something that's going to impact someone in an adverse way. But as leaders, you have to be prepared to make those calls. As a leader, you have to be prepared for the fact that not everybody's going to favor you. You know that saying about you can fool some other people some of the time?
Mhm.
Well, there's some people might be behind you some of the time, but you can almost bet that all the people will never be behind you any of the time. So as a leader, you have to know what it is that you come with and what it is that you are there for. Going back to that drum major thing, there's Dr. King did a sermon about the drum major, but he had actually made reference to the drum major instinct. And the instinct is that drum major instinct that I don't mind being out front. But a person that goes out front, there has to be something that's going to motivate him. If you think about it, how many people you've seen out front that was out front just to be out front? You know how little children are when they're playing and they want to get out front and do something. But the moment it calls for a little more than they're willing to give, they're ready to give that position up just like that.
Mhm.
In the Bible, they refer to a hireling and a shepherd. A hireling is someone that, say if the shepherd is away or he needs someone to step in, that person will gladly do it. Responsibility, accountability. But let it come down to something that's controversial or something that causes this person some discomfort. Instead of working their way through it, or as I would say, rising to the occasion to rise above the circumstances and situations, that person is ready to go. Where's the pastor? Where's the shepherd? In other words, they want to relinquish what has been given to them because this isn't, how many times have you heard this expression? This isn't what I signed up for.
Mhm.
You ever heard that before?
Yeah.
Some people use that expression. That's not what I signed up for. And when they say that, what they're alluding to is this isn't something I'm willing to do, or this isn't something I'm prepared to do, or this isn't something I see myself as doing. So when it comes to this drum major instinct, it really is very significant, and it becomes a trying thing. You made reference to Adam and Eve there in the garden. When they were dealt with, they weren't dealt with as an individual. They were dealt with collectively, not as an individual, but as an entity, because the two shall be one. Individually would be the two of us, but he dealt with them. They had their own individual punishment, but he dealt with them both. So when you look at that concept, it went to Adam. Adam was responsible. But when the accountability came, they were both held accountable. So there was both a consequence for both. And when we look at leadership, we need to understand those things, because there's a thing that, when you think about delegation is a word that can be looked at positive and negative. If you're a leader and you delegate, some people will delegate things so they don't have to do it. In other words, I'm not going to stay here to 10. I'm going to find somebody else to do this and I'm going home. Everybody else is still there working and the leader's gone. That can be a good thing or a bad thing. It can be looked at as positive. It can be looked at as negative. But that's going to be the rapport that the person develops with people. The opposite of that would be the person staying there working beside the people to 9 o'clock. And somebody there taking the initiative to say, why are you here? You don't need to be here. We got this. And the person leaves. He's still respected because somebody suggested he leave versus someone that would never stay. There are a lot of things that we do in life that reflect upon us, not so much as leaders, but upon our character. Because when you look at the leader brings character to the position. The position doesn't make the leader. It's what the leader brings to it. And you said that leaders aren't just that they're selected. I don't know if it was selected or chosen that you use, but a person has to demonstrate something or should have to demonstrate something before they be designated as a leader. And if we just go randomly select someone out of popularity or whatever the case may be, that tends to backfire a lot of times.
Mm-hmm.
So leadership becomes very important. If we had to make this applicable to today, and there's a whole lot of things going on around us, if you had to choose one, what scenario, life situation that's going on today, world, home, life, however you choose to do it, would you apply this to, as in the leadership and the drum major instincts, the presence of, absence of, or need for?
Well, the biggest popular race right now is the politician race, the presidency. So one candidate never took a test or an exam to become a politician. Well, one never took a test or an exam to become a politician. He just got a bunch of his rich friends to say, you know what, I should probably be president. And the other one actually did go to law school, actually did study to become a politician, or I should say a district attorney, actually did study to become one. However, um, she failed at the first time she got the job. So why would we rehire her for a higher position? And it's like, if you can't prove yourself to be a leader the first time around, well, let's put it in very simple terms. We got the manager that runs the restaurant. We got the assistant manager, which is her. And then we got a customer that's just walking in, which is Donald Trump. The customer said, you know what? I should run this daggum restaurant. Y'all ain't doing a good job. And the assistant manager is saying, uh, well, I could, take over for the manager and run this restaurant. And the customers are saying, well, you can't even do your assistant manager job. So why would we want you to be a manager? Come on now. Neither one of them should have the job. It should be someone that goes through the training program to become a manager in order to be the manager of a position. That's actually what I feel like a president should be. Someone that is trained to be a president. Like how they do kings and queens in other countries. They train them from the time they are born to be a leader. Whereas any person that is born in America can become a president. When I say any, I mean any person. You don't have to pass no test. You don't have to pass no exam. All you gotta do is make sure you're clean, your pee is clean, and you graduated from high school. That's it. Actually, I don't even know you have to graduate from high school. But my point is, there's no type of test to become president. There's no formal evaluation. There's nothing. There is no checks and balances when it comes to being a president. When every person below them has to go through some sort of training, some sort of checks and balances at the very lowest level in order for you to be a politician in whatever representing state that you're representing. You actually have to have some background. You have to have some sort of political background. You have to be an activist. You have to be talking to people. You have to be engaging with the community. You have to do something so people know who you are in order for them to vote for you. Whereas in other countries, like in order for you to be a prime minister in England, you can't just walk in off the street and be like, you know what? I think y'all should vote for me. There is a process that you have to go through. Now,
Mhm.
granted, any person can go through that process, but it's still a process. Back when we had kings and queens, there was a process in order to be a king and queen. Um, Even though, like for instance, Queen Elizabeth, even though she was in line to be of royalty, uh, the previous Queen of England had to make sure she was worthy of it, because in order for her to marry her son and become the new Queen of England, she had to make sure everything was, up to par. You have to pass their tests, and I feel like that's how leaders should be. They should be someone that shows the people that are running the country, look, you are qualified to run this country because you can do this.
Mhm.
And the reason why the presidency in the United States is only 4 years long is because we don't have no checks and balances. They literally said, well, shoot, if you're not doing a good job, you only got a contract for 4 years, so all we gotta do is wait, just wait it out. And that's literally how the
Right.
American presidency is ran. And it's unfortunate. I really feel like there should be something put in place that you have to pass. Like, in order for you to have that type of power, in order, you can launch missiles if you want to, you can invade countries. All you have to do is be the popular vote and be a president in order to do something like that. Whereas, in order for you to hold a gun in America, you have to have a clean record. You have to take a gun course in some states, and in some states you got to have a license just to hold a gun.
Mhm.
But if you're a president, you could never have held a gun in your life, but you have access to nuclear bombs. Come on
Right.
now. How does that
Right.
make sense?
And you covered a lot of ground there, and I would say this, supposedly this is a system, the political system, where there are checks and balances. Supposedly, this system is supposed to be like so unique that people are supposed to be in awe of this government and how it's ran. Now, the question becomes, is that the way it actually operates? Because you have these different branches that are supposed to be able to check the other, even down to the system the way it is now. You would appear and think that the most influential person, period, was the president.
Hmm.
When I was in the military, one of the things we always heard about was commander in chief. And that's
Hmm.
sort of supposedly the president's main role, commander in chief, as it pertains to the military. But if you were to listen now, you think that nothing happened without the president okaying it or the president approving of it. When in reality, the system isn't supposed to operate like that. So there's a lot of things that aren't operating as they should, per se. The thought of someone who doesn't have the degree and all of that stuff being able to become president, I wouldn't knock that in reality, because when you think about some, let's just say, some people that were interviewed by Napoleon Hill, he wrote the book Think and Grow Rich. and his book was about men that were millionaires. And if you think about someone that goes to be a millionaire, that person has demonstrated an idea or a knack for business that supersedes his peers, that supersedes the education of the engineers that builds the product, that supersedes the education of the managers that might be running his business. It might be, if you remember the Clampetts, I don't remember the name of that program, but they were hillbillies and they had money. So they had all these people working for them. But one of the things, I want to go back to Napoleon Hill for a moment and Think and Grow Rich. He had the mindset that people that had ideas, that their idea was worth more than people's education. In other words, he made reference to education. He used the term educo. Educo is education that a person acquires in life. You know, we can go to school and we become educated, but the one that has education, educo as he referred to it, is the one that will be in a position to hire the engineers that's going to build the engine, those individuals that are the scientists that's going to design all of the aspects, determine all what it needs to be done to come up with a complete product. So what I'm saying by that is I can somewhat relate to that, especially with the point that supposedly this person is appointed by the people. Now, if everybody thought like you just expressed that, that would definitely change the look of the person that end up in the office. And that would probably make a big difference because at least they'd be weighing those things. But unfortunately, it has kind of digressed to the point where who can raise the most money, who is the most popular, and now who it's crazy, isn't it? to think here I am, a black man, saying something that depending on what race the person is. So in all justice, we're looking at a position here that will determine the future of a country. And rather than look at probably who is more suited to run it this country, when people go out and solicit votes and so forth, it's sad that they would reduce it down to this person is black. And I heard someone say, and this person, it was kind of interesting because I was listening to these individuals speak, and one said, well, Trump has had his chance. Let's give her hers. You know, that made no sense to me. You know, not that I'm for or against her, but your reasoning has to be right. Your reasoning has to be tight. There are just as ignorant black people as there are white people. So race doesn't get you any place with me. It's what comes out of your mouth. And when you look at the type of interviews and things that are being done, the things that are being said, and the things that people and who is getting behind who, you know, people don't realize this, but the people that you kind of get in bed with going to get something, you end up with a relationship long after you get out of that bed, because that's how you got there, and you end up owing some things. So somehow people need to look at it objectively, whether that person is most qualified or not, I don't know. But you wouldn't get my vote on the fact that you brought up race. You wouldn't get my vote on the fact that you brought up this person, if I was a woman or a man, that this person is male and this one is female. I don't look at issues like that, because when it comes down to leadership is a very important position. It isn't just about today or who goes into office, because it's as backwards as politics is now. People that get into office really kind of do whatever they choose, because we, the people that put them there, we are as backwards as well, because rather than worried about what they're doing while they're there, we worry about getting them there. And if they don't do what we expected, then we look for the next 4 years when we should be all over them the whole time that they are there. You know, the fact of protests, the fact of making it known our thoughts, with technology being what it is today. I think I said this before. It should be something in place that, just like they run a poll about who's popular now, it should be a poll as to how popular that decision was. And not only how popular the decision was, but what the people think on the upcoming legislation. We live in a society today where you can monitor everything and everybody. There's no way something like that shouldn't be in place. So I'm hoping that at some point we'll be able to see it. But as we're talking about the drum major, I'm thinking about how difficult it is, how much character it takes to truly be a drum major. Uh, just a transparent moment. Have you ever had a scenario where you had an opportunity to be a drum major, to make an influence when you look back on it, or something that stayed with you that you did or didn't do? Have you ever had a moment like that where you didn't or you did rise to the occasion and you felt the satisfaction of it or the regret that you didn't? Have you ever had such a moment in your life?
Yeah, I have. I actually had a situation where uh, someone was treating a woman unfairly, and it was obviously unfairly. I don't know if it was race or gender related, but it was just unfair how they were treating her. And because it literally happened right in front of me, I looked around like, am I the only one that just heard what was happening? And no one was coming to her aid to defend her. And I said, no, this is not what's going to happen, because what's going to happen is fair treatment for her. Because if you don't treat her fair, what's to say that you won't treat me fair? And then all of a sudden people are like, yeah, that's right. I'm like, well, hold on. Y'all need to be quiet, because y'all just sat down and didn't say nothing until I said something. So y'all are just as bad as this person that's treating this woman unfairly. And I felt like it wasn't a matter of feeling good about the situation. It was a matter of principle for me. I was raised in a certain with a certain set of principles that I should follow. And one of them being that the person to my right and to my left should be treated just as fairly as I have been treated. And I feel like that for every situation. And
Mhm.
like, one day someone told me that, uh, uh, George Washington wasn't the first president. I was like, really? Because I was taught that he was the first president. So what are you talking about? And, they explained it to me, and I was like, they showed me the research, and I was like, oh, well, look at that. You learn something new every day. But I didn't regret that I learned in school when I was a kid George Washington was the the first president. It was just that I realized, in that moment, part of my learning was incorrect.
Mhm.
So, I pray and hope that they're teaching the history of everyone that served as president in the United States. And come to find out that, Obama wasn't technically the first black president.
Mhm.
And so, when you learn these things, it's usually because, you know, uh, uh, they didn't want to teach you the correct thing in school. And, as you grow older, you start to realize that basically your whole childhood was a setup, because people were just telling you what they thought you needed to know instead of what was actually true. And in order for you to be a leader, you have to be able to say, well, it's time to learn something else.
Mhm.
As a leader, you have to be able to say, I was wrong about this. So let me say just thank you for telling me the facts. I appreciate that.
Mhm.
And whereas, people that are not leaders, they will defend their wrong
Wow.
all the way to death, to the grave. You could show them all the facts. You could show them who said it, how they said it, straight from the donkey's mouth, and they'll still look at it and say it's an ass.
Mhm.
And it's not right, but that's not a good leader. A leader's not going to sit there and argue with facts. A leader will say, "Oh, you know what? I was wrong about that. So now let me make it right."
Right. I like what you said, and I think a very important point is actually a leader would do that. And I say that because we need to realize how important leaders are. And if we elect the wrong leader, the only way to truly realize the repercussions or potential repercussions is to realize that that person that's been placed there is in that position as a leader. And that's when we get into those adjectives that describe what type of leader they are. When you say a leader wouldn't, you're referring to a true leader. And I want to specify that because when we place someone somewhere based on our vote or however we do it, and they get there, they are actually in a position. If it comes with authority, they didn't have that authority. If it comes with a responsibility, they then have that responsibility. But the one thing that you cannot give a person or take is the accountability. People will deny till the end it wasn't their fault. They don't see it as their fault. Therefore, they're not going to have anything to do with it. It's like right now, Kamala in running for office, when they ask questions about her past, you've been president for 3 years or vice president for 3 years. There are just certain things you don't get to say. You get to clarify some things, but you don't get to say as though you're brand new at this. And when people do that, that's a lack of responsibility or accountability. And when people get to the point where that is missing, that is a reflection of leadership. And when you have someone like Trump, and he's been in a position where he's done this, you can't come and say you didn't do. Or someone asks you about your policies, you got to take ownership of that. So they're both the same in that bracket. But when you get into a point where how well they deal with that or do that, that becomes a matter of integrity. And if you have a leader that lacks integrity, what that is saying here is you have someone that will lie to you. And if someone will lie to you, that means that they are not respectable of you, or they don't even respect themselves. Because when it comes to integrity, that isn't something that a person, as you said earlier, you aren't taught integrity. No one can, that's not a lesson in class. That's a lesson in life. And everybody that goes through life still doesn't learn integrity. That's a personal trait, a personal characteristics. My situation that I look back on and I think about as a drum major or a leader, and I want to really point out the significance of this. When I was in high school, I made some decisions that there was a young lady who actually we'd known each other for a while, but when she got pregnant, and when I learned that she was pregnant, she was probably like 4 or 5 months, and we hadn't seen each other in a while. So when we finally did reconnect, she was pregnant, and I literally took on that role as father, raised that child up until a certain age. And one day he was old enough, she and I had divorced probably about this time. But a couple of years later, he made a statement to me and he said, and I know that you're not my dad. And, it dawned on me that was never, ever discussion. But when he said that, it kind of stuck with me. But a couple years later, the mother passed. I had 2 daughters and my son. And I still refer to him as my son, even after that statement. But when his mother passed and I went to Alabama, this was a drum major moment. And when I went there, my children were at their aunt's house. When you think a male and gone on with his life, and here's his children. But when I went there, I've made my mind up that I was taking my children. And so when I went there was no question about my two daughters. They were going with me, period. If I had to turn Alabama inside out. So there was no resistance there. But being the man that I was, and because the young man had said to me he knew I wasn't his dad, I gave him an option, because it would have been a little bit different trying to do what I did with my daughters. But I would have did it if he had said he wanted to go. But I asked him, I said, do you want to go with me? He cried like a baby, which is, I know enough about people to know that his yes, that he wanted to stay, was actually a no. But because of what he had told me and trying to respect him, I allowed him to stay. That was probably the worst thing in his life that I could have done, because of the where his life went. Could have went there with me, but because I didn't give all I could have given, I have to live with that and see the results of that. So when I, as a drum major, look back at that, all the character that I had to raise and do everything else I'd done in his life, I didn't do something. As I reflect upon it, you know, people might say, well, that was his decision. We could say anything we choose, but the question is designed to point out the drum major and what makes a drum major a drum major. It isn't something that I was prepared for. You know, here it is. The death is fresh. Hadn't even been in the grave a week good. All these issues here for everybody involved, relatives, everybody. But nevertheless, it is now probably about 30 years behind me, but I still look back at that. So as we go through life, what I want to emphasize when it comes to our personal lives, our professional lives, our lives in general, we impact the lives of others, and the decisions we make will have a lasting impact regardless of how you look at it. It may be something that requires a simple yes or no. It may be something that requires a, well, okay, don't worry about it. Whatever the case may be, it comes with consequences. It comes with results. So when we're being a leader or choosing a leader, we need to realize that, because we live in this United States, as backwards as it is. You know, we talk about character, making right decisions, informed decisions. How would a person that does not know history avoid repeating it if they didn't know history? How could a person that was unable to face the challenges of history expect their children to face the challenges of history or the consequences of history if they're unwilling to deal with it? If you can imagine, Brother Gregory, when you said that you learned about the first president, that it wasn't George Washington, it's still not in a history book. When people learn things like that, it can be verified, but why isn't it in a history book? Because maybe it didn't fit someone's narrative. That's called a lie. And when we look at the lies that we've been told, the lies that we allow to continue, the lies that we spread, these are the type lies that end up in history book accurately in some cases and incorrectly in others. So what we as individuals have to do is realize that we have an obligation. We have an obligation to ourselves. We have an obligation to our loved ones, our friends, our family, and beyond that, our community. And beyond our community, the world. And if we can't rise to the occasion and be the best us that we can be, who's going to do it? That really becomes a very important question. Who's going to do it? And if nobody ever does it, one thing you can count on for certain, and that is that it will not be done. So the question becomes who? I want y'all to think about that for a moment. And that's a serious point to transition from. So I'm going to do it in this manner.
This generation
and turn their hearts to our Father which art in heaven, and turn their hearts to our Father, Lord of creation. it be you?
Will it be you?
Will it be you?
Tell me who?
Who?
Will it be you?
Will it be you?
Tell me who?
Tell me who?
Tell me who?
Tell me who?
Will it be you?
Will it be?
That's the question. Who will it be you? We are actually talking about identity. Tell me who. Who are you? Who do you think you are? Mr. Big Stuff, Mr. Nobody. Are you anybody? Who? It's all really about identity. And the more we can build our identity, reflect our identity, display that identity, the more we will have a impact on society. And let me qualify that. If we are ignorant and we show that ignorance, people know what ignorance look like. If we use wisdom and show and walk in that wisdom, people know what wisdom looks like. People need to be, and we need to be honest. Because the more honest we are, the more honest and truthful our society becomes. Right now, it is deceitful. We have a political system where people can lie, come up with the best lie, come up with the best promise, all to get into an office. And we will put them there, not realizing that how serious of a position it is. If you look at what's going on in the world today, there's all sort of issues. You know, when your country spends all this money in another country, and the people in that country that you spend all this money on now turns around because you look at helping another country and ask you, how can you give your money to that country when they still need money? You know, that says something. That says something for a leader that has done that. That says something for someone in their relationship to ask that question. But beyond that comes tomorrow. What does tomorrow hold? What will this individual being put in this situation, what will he do? You can bet it all boils down to identity. Identity, identity, identity. It's so very important. We have to first know ourselves, and then we can deal with others. The Bible says, know those that labor among you. And when you know those individuals that's laboring among you, you know how to deal with them. There's a saying, a snake is a snake. And if you and that snake go through the coldest winters together, he's still going to be a snake. And the moment that it warms up and the hissing and the shaking of the tail starts, he's going to be a snake. You can bet that. So whatever the commonalities are, we need to be wise as serpents, but harmless as doves. There's a thing called character, and character is not measured in time of comfort, but in time of adversity. I'm going to get off my soapbox. Brother Gregory, we're running out of time. I'm going to allow you to come back and you can comment on whatever I've said or come from where you choose. Give us your Emmy moment and we'll be wrapping up.
I was reading James chapter 4, verse 17. Knowing what's right, but choosing to do wrong is sin. And it took me a while to find that. But it goes back to leadership and identity. So when you identify who you are as a person, you know what what you think you're supposed to do in life, and somehow for whatever reason you choose to do something differently and you fail at it, is that considered to be sin? And then you got to ask yourself, am I just following what someone told me to do, or I'm actually following a leader? And if you say, oh, I was just following what the leader told me to do, then you got to ask yourself the second question: are they a leader? Because if you know that they're not a leader, but you choose to listen to what they say, that is sin. By James, according to James chapter 4, verse 17. If you know they're not a leader, but you choose to follow them, let them lead you, and you know what's not right, that is sin. So if you know someone is telling you, to put in what our parents used to say, if such and such, let's say Johnny, if Johnny told you to jump off the bridge, are you going to listen to Johnny and jump off the bridge? No, I'm not going to listen to Johnny. You could know, because you know it's wrong. So what we also have to go back on what you said, we have to understand who we are as people, and we have to also understand who is a leader. Now, don't get me wrong, some people have a good mouthpiece on them, and they can talk a really good game, and they can sound like leaders. But all you have to do is do a little bit of due diligence, and you'll figure out quickly that they're probably not leaders. They're not qualified to be in that position. And, qualification doesn't always come from book learning. A lot of times it comes from experience.
Mhm.
And I said this once before, that the worst way to grow wise is through experience.
Mhm.
And in my opinion, that's what makes a good leader is someone that is wise in something, but doesn't necessarily have the experience. Like, I can tell you till I'm blue in the face that getting shot hurts, but if I've never been shot before, I don't know exactly how much it hurts. And so what makes me wise to not get shot is knowing that probably hurts.
Mhm. Right.
So just listen to your heart, listen to God, and He will show you the leaders that you need to follow.
Mhm. Right. I like that, and also the leader that we need to be. That concludes our program for tonight. We pray that you all will join us again next Friday and Wednesday. If you will tune in to Rise to Prosperity, it also comes on at 8 p.m. Where the host is Lady Antoinette, and we have a panelist and our conversation room guests. So we invite you all to join us there. So, having said everything that we have to say, I pray that you all are going to be blessed and that you will make the most of your days. And I encourage you, whatever occasion you're confronted with, that you will rise to it. And once you rise to it, you are now in a position to rise above it. Only when you rise to the occasion can you arise above it. Until the next time, peace and blessings be unto you all. Stay safe. And I'm not even going to tell you about voting. Just use some wisdom.